Okay, to sum up, there are basically four things I would like you to take away from this session. The first is the notion that there are actually three different kinds of leverage that underlies power in negotiation: positive, negative, and normative. We have focused primarily on how power is related to one's BATNA, and that is still certainly true. However, by delving further into the nature of power, I hope it has become clearer to you how power can also be derived from the interests you can satisfy, the information you have, the objective criteria you can identify, the influence principles you can leverage, the threats you might levy, and the quality of the relationship you can build. All of these things feed into the three different kinds of leverage we have covered. Thus, the question you should try to answer as you prepare to negotiate is, where do you stand relative to your counterpart on each of these three types of leverage? This will be critical for understanding your strengths and weaknesses in the situation and for guiding how you should approach the negotiation itself. The second thing we covered is how to improve these three different types of leverage. The way to do that should be pretty straightforward based on what each of these three types of leverage entails. Positive leverage is simply a function of identifying interests your counterpart might have that you are able to satisfy. Negative leverage depends on the interests your counterpart might have that you can keep them from satisfying. And normative leverage is a function of the laws, rules, standards, or other objective criteria that you can identify to support the legitimacy of your claims. The third thing I hope you take away is that the perception of power is not simply a matter of how well you are able to alter the three types of leverage we have discussed in your favor, but also a matter of which type of leverage represents the focus of the conversation. Thus, part of what negotiators can do to alter the power balance is to shift the discussion to focus on the type of leverage in which they have more of an advantage. Finally, the last thing I hope to underscore with this session is the notion that being trustworthy, credible, and pursuing interest-based negotiations is not just about being nice, soft, or weak-willed. These things also represent very important factors that can help you increase your power in negotiation. If you are not considered trustworthy, your counterpart will not share the information about their interests that you would need to increase your positive leverage. Likewise, if your references to different rules and standards are not credible, your ability to increase normative leverage is impaired. Moreover, to the extent that you don't know enough about your counterpart's interests, you may find yourself levying threats that do little to increase your negative leverage and wind up damaging the relationship for nothing. This gets to the well-known adage, know your enemy. If you don't understand your counterpart well, then your attempts to increase both positive and negative leverage will be less effective. And finally, even if your threat does manage to target a meaningful interest of your counterpart, the threat may do little if that threat is not credible. Thus, being trustworthy, credible, and pursuing interest-based negotiations can all be critical for dealing with real and even hard-nosed negotiations in the real world. All of these qualities can help you find ways to analyze the situation, increase your leverage, and ultimately reach better deals from your negotiations.